Bizarre Brain Comics. Oh, hello, my comic book friends, and welcome to Bizarre Brain Comics. I'm Gary, your host, and this is where I like to take a look at some older comics, talk a little bit about the characters and creators, and examine the stories and the art. Now, put that off center. A couple weeks ago, or a few weeks ago, I did an episode on some Bronze Age Gold Key Star Trek comics. And then a little while later, I did an episode of some from the DC era in Star Trek. They were primarily annuals and some movie adaptations. And now here's another more or less random batch featuring both DC from the 80s and 90s and Marvel Star Trek comics from the 90s. It's just kind of a random batch, and some of these should have been in with the others, but they weren't together at the time. Ouch! I burned my finger. Okay, this is an unusual one here. We started off with this is Star Trek number 33 from DC Comics, 1986. This is a special one because it was commemorating 20 years. It's hard to believe. 20 years of Star Trek. And it's been 39 years since this book came out. So 20 years of Star Trek. And this was written by Len Wein with art by Tom Sutton and Villagrán. Anniversary contest deals inside. Don't matter about that. It was a special issue. It was a little fatter than the regular ones. And see, this is one. I do want to say one thing here. Tom Sutton is a fine artist, and he does, like here, this is a great job on the Enterprise. But sometimes the DC artists just were not quite as good at drawing the Enterprise as Alberto Giolitti and Al McWilliams were at Gold Key. But they all do draw Enterprise better than I can. Enterprise is very difficult to draw accurately. Anyway, this takes place. This is an unusual one because it starts with the classic, fine artwork here. Actually, starts out at the very end of a classic Trek episode. I think it's what's the title? Tomorrow Is Yesterday, the one where they accidentally went back in time. Got the Captain Christopher, who was the fighter pilot, and then that's when they first learned about the slingshot time warp stuff. Well, here, this is when they're first coming back. I'm right at the end of that episode, and they get back to their own time. And then right here, crunch. And this section here is right here. I point this out for a reason. Right here, and right here is directly dialogue and stuff directly from that episode. Except here, from here down, it's entirely different. And it turns out that they've gone overshot their time to 20 years in the future, and come in contact with not the Enterprise, because at this point it was after Search for Spock, but before the voyage home. And the Enterprise was destroyed, and Admiral Kirk is, in the comics at this time, is in command of the Excelsior, NX 2000, with his regular crew on there, and except for Spock. And so the Enterprise from 20 years before meets the motion picture era crew. Come face to face, vicious circle. Oh yeah, and then we wind up with two Scotties, two Kirks, two Spocks, because Spock eventually shows up because he is in command of the Vulcan ship Surak, and a science vessel, and they scope things out. Have to go to the planet on the edge of forever. Remember, the guardian of eternity, and help them. He has to help them. They get, and the Enterprise crew goes back, and now here's again right exactly. They use the exact same pages, art for the pages and dialogue that we saw on page 2 and 3. For this page here, directly from the dialogue from the episode. then here the same panels, but then here down, boom, was new panels, which conform dialogue, etc., to the end of that episode. Oh, and that was very creative, and that's the only reason why I went into more detail on that than I would normally have, because it was so unusual. I just recently reread it and said, "Oh, that's cool." I had forgotten. Then this one. This is DC Annual number 3 from 1988. This should have been in that annual episode, but it was elsewhere. And if you recall, if you watch that, you saw there was one where I said, "Oh, here something unusual." It had some Curt Swan Star Trek art and part of one of those issues. And I said at the time, to my knowledge, that was the only Star Trek he ever did. Well, I was wrong. I had completely forgotten about this one. This is Annual number 3, 1988. The whole thing is drawn by Curt Swan, and it is all about Scotty and things through Scotty's life. But on top of that, as I said, it's all Curt Swan pencils. It's some really, really great stuff. As segments of throughout Scotty's life and his romance with this lady. But on top of that, this copy is signed by the late great Curt Swan. I had completely forgotten about that. But what was it? I think it was in the early 90s. He and some other people from DC Comics were at they were like doing some kind of tour, comic shops all over the country for signing stuff. So that's what I briefly met Curt Swan, and he signed this issue for me. So that is really, really wonderful, and some really nice Curt Swan Star Trek art there. And this probably also should have been in that other episode, because I had movie adaptations. Well, this is DC Movie Special from 1989, Star Trek The Final Frontier. Adaptation by Peter David. James Fry and Arnie Starr did the interior art. And who did it say? Cover painting by Roger Stein. So, and that's really nice. And of course, this is one of the least popular of the Star Trek films, but kind of grows on you with time, though. But it's a fine adaptation and might very well be better than the movie. Now here, this is something. It's not actually Star Trek. This is from Personality. Personality Comics is the original crew. I have a few issues of these Personality Comics, not too many, but this is. They would have comic book biographies of personalities. In this case, it's James Doohan. Jimmy Doohan, Scotty, from, of course, the original Star Trek. It's a nice cover illustration, and some nice interior art written by Tiki, whoever that is. Juan Pineda was the penciler, and Ken Branch was the inker. And we get some nice stuff. Oh, there's a nice painting on the back of Kirk. And we get to see a lot of the history, James Doohan's life. I have a couple other issues. And here in the back they have ads for other volumes in Personality Comics. Like there's one, Madonna, Led Zeppelin, and they mostly did sports figures and some Star Trek actors. But it's quite interesting reading, and I wish I had that autographed. Met Jimmy Doohan. He is a favorite of ours. We met Jimmy Doohan twice. Once he was doing some kind of promotional thing, and we were all dressed up as Klingons, and it was at his birthday, and he was there at this store for some kind of promotion. And my wife had made this great big, because she's an artist as well, she made this great big birthday card for him, as a poster board folded in half, and he just loved that. And another time we met him at. This was at a very tiny convention up in Fort Collins. The guy who put it on owned a nightclub. He dedicated his nightclub to that convention, and it cost him so much money. He lost so much money on that. He wound up losing his business, which is very unfortunate. But he had George Takei, not George Takei, Chekhov. I'm sorry, I'm suddenly drawing a blank. Chekhov, Walter Koenig, and James Doohan there. And it was later in his life, he was having some health problems. And while he was there doing some signings and stuff at this table, and then he had to get up to go out onto the dance floor to sit down so he could speak. And he had difficult health problems, and he had difficulty getting up. And here, my friend and myself, here we are, big ugly Klingons. Here we come up, and we help him stand up and help walk him out there. He was so sweet. And then when his limousine was leaving, we were all outside, all us Klingons were outside, and we were smoking and talking and stuff, and cooling off and the like, because in that heavy makeup and costume uniform. And his limousine was pulling away to take him to the airport, and he had the driver stop, roll down his window as he come up next to us, and to say thank you, and waved to us, and that was just so wonderful. And Jimmy Doohan he's just the greatest. And then, okay, back to the comics. Now this is Star Trek. I have various issues. I don't have nearly as many as I used to, and I don't have as many as I wish I still had. But this is part of a storyline. Unfortunately, it started with the story arc started in number 53. This is 54. This is from 1993. Yeah, 93. Star Trek: Desperate Measures, in which again involving the Guardian of Forever, and they have to go back in time, disguised as Klingons, and I haven't read it in so long, I don't remember the whole thing. See who wrote it? Come on, where is it? Should be here. Howard Weinstein, Rod Wiggum, and Arnie Starr. This is issue 54, and Sir Kirk and company as disguised as Klingons. Again, 55, the gods be with the Peacemaker. Number 55, for today he must die. In the same dress. And it finishes with 56, come back in time when the Klingons are first developing powered flight. It says, on wings of death. And there's Kirk as a Klingon. And there's McCoy as a Klingon. Okay. Oh, one more. 56. 57. Time's up. Kirk and Sulu as Klingons. Okay. Then we go to, what year was this? I just looked at it. 96, I think it was. It wasn't 90. Yeah, it had to be 96. Star Trek First Contact. The comic adaptation. Look at that beautiful cover painting. What's on the back? Just the Enterprise. First Contact. Probably the best of the next gen movies. And some beautiful artwork and a wonderful adaptation. They even included when Data cussed because of his emotion chip. Oh, that was wrong. That was the other one. That was in Generations. I'm sorry, but yeah. Yeah, it said assimilate this. Yeah. So if you're familiar with that movie, yeah, here we go. And then here we go. This is I forgot, because this is Marvel. Of course, Marvel. When that short period of time when Marvel had the license again. And here we go to 90. Here is also 1996. Star Trek Voyager #1 collector's issue for the first time ever in their own comic book series. Of course, the show hadn't been around very long, but I happen to have 2 copies of this one. And see some nice stuff doing stuff on the holodeck. Some decent artwork. Of course, this is before 7 of 9. There's one, and then I have this copy of issue #1, and it was signed by Tuvok, Tim Russ himself. So that's kind of cool. Then we'll go to some of their other titles. This is 97, Star Trek Starfleet Academy, and then Starfleet marked out and it says Klingon Academy. So Star Trek Academy number 4, and it's Klingon. See, if I get nothing else, I get the Klingon stuff, right? This is from 97. And of course, Starfleet Academy was when Nog went to Starfleet, and then it's about his time at the Academy, and some of the stuff. That of course is before the war with the founders. Okay. Then we have 98, Star Trek Untold Voyages, number 5, Close Encounters. This is neat. There's Greenberg, Collins, and Williams, and this is a classic Trek story. And did some decent artwork. But what's unusual about this is because this involves UFOs and the gray aliens. Yeah, you know, the ones who are supposedly abducting people. Yes, that's cool. See, look at that. UFO, like right out of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Hence the title, Close Encounters. Then we have 98. Still from Marvel here, is Star Trek Deep Space Nine, number 14. The Tribble with Klingons. And this is a funny one, because buy this book or the Tribble gets it. Of course, this is when the time when Worf is on Deep Space Nine. But it's about the history of Klingons and Tribbles and stuff. And it takes place after the episode Trials and Tribulations, when the crew were whipped back in time, and they are on right in the middle of the Trouble with Tribbles episode with Kirk. But when they came back, they brought back Tribbles, and the place is being overrun by Tribbles, and has the history of the Great Tribble Hunt. So, okay, then we make a big jump to 2007, IDW. I think this is the only IDW, maybe the only one. Do they still, IDW still have it? I don't know who has the Star Trek license right now. But this is just an issue all about Klingons. Blood Will Tell, and that's what it is. All about Klingons. So. And that's what we're all about the Klingons. So I had to get that, and that's some really nice cover painting with Koloth on the cover. So that is all I have to share with you this time for Star Trek. And I do want to thank you for joining me. Please like, share, subscribe, leave your comments down below. I'm going to have some more Star Trek coming up soon. I got one that I do a deep dive in one particular issue. So thank you for joining me. Like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think about all these Star Trek comic books. I still think, though, the DC era was the best as far overall of Star Trek in comics, and definitely the best written. So, again, and remember, comics are art.